Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. I want to start off by wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving as we enter our Week 13 Thursday games. And I just want to make a note that I made a few changes, and if you follow along, you'll notice those changes. But if you don't, then go ahead and subscribe, because then you can follow along to the evolution of the tool. But enough of that, let's get into our data for this game. Looking into our second game of the day, you have Kansas City going to Dallas, where Kansas City is favored on the money line with a spread of 3.5 and a total line of 52.5. Moving over your team seasonal averages, and then looking at the rankings, starting with Kansas City, you have a pretty strong offense here with a scoring rank of 9 and a really strong passing rank of 2, and then a rushing rank of 14 is their weakest one offensively. Defensively, they also have a pretty strong defense, maybe top third of the league overall with an allowed passing rank of 7 and an allowed rushing rank of 8. They also have an allowed scoring rank of 4, meaning that they're the fourth best in the league at preventing other teams from scoring. For Dallas, they also have a very strong offense that also looks kind of like Kansas City's, with a strong scoring rank of 4, the best passing team in the league with a passing rank of 1, and then a little better than average rushing rank of 12. Notably, they're much worse with their tight ends than Kansas City is. And then also their defense, which is one of the worst in the leagues, with an allowed scoring rank of 31, so they're the second worst team in the league at preventing their opponents from scoring. And they also have an allowed passing rank of 31, so they're the second worst team in the league at preventing their opponents from passing. They also have an allowed rushing rank of 22, so bottom third team in terms of their defense. Once again, starting with the quarterbacks, you have Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott, with Mahomes averaging 21.5 fantasy points per game, and Dak Prescott averaging 20. You have Mahomes with 7 passing interceptions and no other turnovers, and you have Dak Prescott with 7 interceptions as well, but also a sack fumble. There's their averages for the season, as well as their weekly breakdown if you need it. You can pause and take a look at that. And then here's the charts, with Mahomes getting about 18.9% of the team's rushing carry share and 26.7% of the team's rushing yard share, giving them about a quarter of the team's total rushing yards. With Dak Prescott, he gets about 14.5% of the team's rushing carry share, but only about 10.5% of the team's rushing yard share. And then with our running backs next, you have Isaiah Pacheco and Javonte Williams. With the return of Pacheco, you get an average of 7.5 fantasy points per game, and with Williams, you average 16.2 fantasy points per game. However, Williams is the only one with turnovers, with 1 rushing fumble and 1 receiving fumble. So there's the averages again. And then their charts, where we look at with Pacheco getting about 28.4% of the team's rushing carry share and 27.6% of the team's rushing yard share. That being a little low because he was out for the last few weeks. And over here with Williams, you get about 69% of the team's rushing carry share and 74.4% of the team's rushing yard share, which is a vast majority of it over anybody else on the team. And then moving into our number 1 receivers, you get Rashid Rice and CeeDee Lamb, with Rice averaging 20.2 fantasy points per game and Lamb averaging 17.1. There are no turnovers given up, so then there's your season averages for them. And then their breakdown for their teams, where you have Rashid Rice getting about 12.3% of the team's target share and 13.4% of the team's receiving yard share. He is slowly growing over time, you can see, because he's been out for so much. Again, these are kind of broken, but we can see that this would be his more recent here as these other ones get broken off. With CeeDee Lamb, you get about 19.3% of the team's target share and 21.6% of the team's receiving yard share. Next up, we have our number 2 receivers with Xavier Worthy and George Pickens. Worthy averaging 8.7 fantasy points per game and Pickens averaging 20 fantasy points per game. Neither receiver has given up any turnovers this season, so then we'll just flow into their averages here, along with their weekly breakdown if you need any of that. And then our charts, with Worthy getting about 13.9% of the team's target share and 11.5% of the team's receiving yard share. And then with Pickens getting about 24.6% of the team's target share and 36.1% of the team's receiving yard share. He still owns the most right now of anybody else on Dallas. And even with CeeDee Lamb being out and kind of catching up, he's still been getting quite a bit every week. And then, of course, finishing up with the tight ends, having Travis Kelce and Jake Ferguson, with Kelce getting an average of 13.4 fantasy points per game, and Ferguson pretty close with 13.7 as well. Ferguson's the only one with a turnover, with 1 receiving fumble, but otherwise, here's their seasonal averages, and then their breakdown. And looking at how they stack up compared to their team, you have Travis Kelce with 18.9% of the team's target share and 22.8% of the team's receiving yard share. You also have Ferguson with 20.6% of the team's target share and 15.7% of the team's receiving yard share. It is interesting to note that Ferguson gets about the second most targets on the team, even though he has about the third most receiving yards on the team. And then with Kelce, he gets the most for both targets and receiving yards of anybody else on the Chiefs. So there's all the available data we have for this game. It is interesting to note that, they have a very similar offenses, but they're going against very different defenses, which I really think gives Kansas City the advantage here. You have a much, much better defense than you do over on Dallas. So Dallas's best hope is to keep up with scoring, and you have Kansas City with an allowed scoring rate of 4 here, so that's going to make it really tough for Dallas. So based off all those numbers, I would go with Kansas City for this game. So there's all your information for that game. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe, and otherwise leave a comment on what you think of the new updates. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next game.